I can be a woman who's straight, who wants a husband, who wants kids and wants regular things and also have HIV. My status does not define me, and I refuse to let it confine me. Unconditional love truly makes the world go round. You have the strength inside yourself to stand up, to speak, and to be heard.
Welcome back to Season 5 of Confessions, HIV Positive Women. This season, we're diving into the experiences of women at different stages of life, all navigating the realities of living with HIV. You'll meet a young woman recently diagnosed at just 21 years old, as well as a lifelong survivor who has been living with HIV since birth. We'll also hear from women who are now facing the unique challenges of aging with HIV. Join us as we explore their journeys, resilience, and what it means to thrive at every stage of life.
My name is Madalena. On social media, I go by Mis.u.understood. I was diagnosed in August of 2023 at the age of 21 years old. I'm from New Jersey, but I currently live in Tampa, Florida. I've been living with HIV for about a year and a half now. 3 words that describe me: compassionate, spunky, and fearless. My mom is a short Italian lady from New Jersey, and my dad is he's African American. They are both from New Jersey, born and raised. I have 3 older brothers. I am actually the baby and the only girl. On both sides of my family, we have 11 first cousins, and I've always been the only girl. I'm class of 2020. I graduated high school in 2020. 5 years ago, if you were to tell me where I was at or where I'd be in life, it would not be here talking to you. Actually, I was in a serious relationship at the time, and I thought I was gonna go to school. I was just getting out of high school. I was planning to go away to college, and this was actually before the pandemic and COVID, so it was like a culture shock. Before my diagnosis, I had no clue what HIV did to the body or the effects on the immune system or how serious it was. I always kind of pertained it to people who do drugs or are gay or trans, and really the LGBTQ community. So I actually found out about my HIV status and my diagnoses at work. I work in healthcare, and at the time I had asked my colleague, who's also a really good friend of mine, to check her Quest portal. So when I walked up to her at work, I said, "Hey, can you check my allergy panel?" And we both just stared blankly at the screen that said HIV 1 and 2 reactive. She told me to leave and go to the hospital. So I had left work and I drove myself to the hospital, and I checked myself into the hospital by myself. The day I was diagnosed in Davis Island, that's the hospital you go to in Tampa. That's where you have to cross a bridge to get to the hospital. And there's this long, windy bridge, and when I was driving there, I was shaking, and I looked at myself, and I said to myself, "You can either drive off this bridge, or you can check yourself into the hospital." And I decided to check myself into the hospital. I was so sick before I was diagnosed with HIV. I had a swollen lymph node on the left side of my neck when they found the HIV in my body. At one point, I had 105 fever for 7 days straight. I had been in and out of urgent cares, emergency rooms 3-4 times, and I had actually been tested for STIs 4 times within my last negative HIV test. However, no healthcare provider ever said to me "Oh, you're getting an STI test for a new sexual partner, you should get an HIV test too." And it wasn't a thought to me because that was my ignorance, putting my trust completely in the healthcare providers. But as far as symptoms, I would explain it as a 4-month-long flu. Before being diagnosed with HIV, I had went to Puerto Rico And I was on a girls' trip with my 4 girlfriends. We were in Puerto Rico and we were eating street food because that's what you do on vacation. And my immune system was so compromised, I came back with E. coli. I was the only girl of 4 that came back with E. coli on the trip. So when I was in the hospital, I was quarantined, and that goes to show how weak HIV can make your body. And 4 months, my viral load was 220,000, and I left for a small vacation and came back like almost deathly ill. I have an idea as to how I got HIV, but it is kind of misunderstood, my situation. The person I believe is responsible left the state of Florida in July. I was diagnosed in August, and due to HIV laws and the fact that he's in another state, all I had to do was I reported him to the Department of Health, but as far as like going any further or having the clarity or truth about his status, because he's denied it, he won't answer my DMs, my texts, like I've asked for his test results. And because of HIPAA laws, Florida is not able to tell me. So I have an idea, but I have no real closure or clarity. And I have DM'd them multiple times. I've like posted things on like Are We Dating the Same Guy Facebook groups. I've tried to do what I can. I actually went as far as calling the Texas Harris County, but if Texas doesn't find him or force him to get a test, that's really, the cycle just continues. I don't hold grudges. I will say that I believe in the universe, and I believe in karma, in the sense of I believe in the universe and that the world and God and higher up and faith and hope, and I just believe in the right things at the right times will happen. Like, I just think that time is everything, and there's no mistake for certain things, and I think what goes around comes around, and karma will do what I can't do. But it's my job now to advocate and protect women, because I would rather die 1,000 times than have another girl in my shoes. My infectious disease doctors are really great, and they answer all of my questions. They're great. And as far as like myself, I do a lot of research. I look at videos. I'm always on social media, documentaries, like whatever I can get my hands on as far as like the HIV epidemic and where it started and where it is now. My uncle, back in the 1980s, he was an infectious disease doctor during the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and he contributed a lot of research to the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and I've found myself now reading his old research articles, which is very bittersweet. One of the articles I read, it said he was putting stuff out a week before he died of cancer himself. And I just think the irony of my uncle being such a selfless man, for those men not knowing years later it would be his own niece. What influenced me to go public? I am no different than these girls. Like, we're all fucking. Like, I know girls who've done worse for free. Like, I know men who do worse for less. Like, I was furious. Like, I was just so mad because it just like everyone's doing the same shit as me. Why me? Like, and I had this like almost like this victim complex. Like, why me? Why me? And I knew I wasn't alone, because I know I'm not the only person who's had a pH balance that's been off. I know I'm not the only person who's experienced an STD before. Like, I know I'm not the only one, but nobody talks about it. Everybody talks about sex. I go on Instagram, it's boobs, it's ass, it's tits, it's sex this. It's all glorified, but we don't talk about STDs. We don't talk about the dark stuff that comes with sexual intercourse. And I was just so mad, and I was so tired of feeling alone, because I knew I wasn't alone. And I was like, somebody has to do it. If not me, then who? Like, what? I just felt like, what more did I have to lose at that point? So a common theme again, like men don't like to wear condoms, but I've also had a lot of women acknowledge that they prefer sex raw. Testing, I've just had people admit to a lot of things. You'd be surprised how many people have herpes. And herpes is one of those things that, newsflash, you kiss somebody and they have herpes, they don't need to disclose to you. I learned a lot. I learned things about people who live with HIV, though, that I didn't know. I learned that people struggle to take their medication every day. I didn't know that. I take my pill every day like it's nothing because I do. But I didn't know that some people, they literally can't live with the fact of even having to take a pill every day. One of the things that I feel like I've became like most grateful for in sharing my story is the people who have lost someone to HIV or AIDS back when it was not well understood and there wasn't enough research and the science and the work hadn't been done to help these people. I feel like that's been the best thing for me because I feel like I'm speaking for them. I'm speaking for everyone who didn't get a chance to speak up. But I get a little skeptical, but I've met some very cool people that I'm very grateful for, yes. So I share my status on TikTok and Instagram. If you look at my username and when you spell it, you'll notice that I have 2 U's in the username. There's no coincidence and that wasn't an accident. I actually did that because U equals U and undetectable means untransmittable and HIV is very misunderstood. But I've used my platform to connect with people. I have people who support me and then I have people who don't like what I have to say, but that's like been my whole life. The TikTok ban was so weird because I had 16K followers. When I got back after the ban, those like couple days, I had 25,000 followers. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was gonna like work on Instagram. I was maybe considering Patreon, but I was kind of like salty. My best friend, actually my childhood best friend, we've been friends since we were 12 years old. She was my first phone call and I was like, I have HIV. And she was like, how is you cool? Like, what? Like, but my friends were supportive. They were all just kind of like, what? Like, what does this mean? Like, are you gonna die? Like, what? Like, can you have sex? Like, that was the big one for my friends. Like, wait, can you still have sex? My family members, first of all, my mom is like, if you know her, she's a force to be reckoned with. She knew something was wrong. She was like, where are you? You're being weird, blah, blah, blah. And like, I was just so scared to tell my mom because my mom and I were not close before my diagnosis. Like, my mom had one rule growing up, don't get pregnant. Like, that was it. Like, we never talked about STIs. We never talked about STDs. We never talked about like a yeast infection. Like, that wasn't a conversation. It was don't get pregnant because my mom had a child young and she didn't want that for me. But we never like had any education as far as like prevention from STIs or STD. My brother is actually gay himself and I called him crying. And he came from New Jersey on a plane in less than 10 hours. And the first thing he said to me is, I've been fighting my whole life and running from HIV. And now my little sister has it. And for the first time in my life, I'd be okay with having it. And that was when I realized how serious HIV was and what it did to his community. And I feel like my family, they were super sad for me. And, you know, my dad's a colonel in the Army. He's done 25 years in the service. Like, he's always been the sounding mind in my family. And for the first time in my life, I saw him break down and cry. It really hurt me. I was more sad that my family was so sad for me than I was for myself. I felt like I hurt them or like I betrayed them. When I was 14, my mom moved to California and I stayed with my dad in New Jersey. So from 14 to 20, I was with my dad. I always knew I could go to my mom, but did I want to? No, I didn't want to. And at that time, I had no choice. What's changed for myself is like, I feel free. Like, as soon as I posted, I pressed click on that button. Like, you know, when you're mad at your ex on Facebook or Instagram and you post a story and you're like, yeah, like, that's how I felt. I'm free. What can y'all tell me now? You can't tell me shit. I have friends who have HIV and like they can't go in my comments because it upsets them. And like I have personal friends, like my best friend, she can't go in my comments. It's my boyfriend, he doesn't go in my comments because the comments upset them. Like this is someone they love, and these people that I'm a stranger to, that they don't have any care for or compassion for, they're just on the internet dogging out, and it upsets people. Oh my god, I can't stand the trolls. I call them the peanut gallery. But if you go in my comments and you look through the positive things, it's beautiful. Like, and I'm really thankful for the people who have opened their hearts to me, but also you'd be surprised how many people's families and like how many people's lives were affected by HIV and AIDS. It's my boyfriend. So I met him, I was 3 months into being diagnosed with HIV, and we had just been talking like on like Instagram, and then we had just been texting, but more so like as friends. And you know, when you first talk to someone, like in this generation, like you never know what you're gonna get. And like in my head, like I had HIV, so I wasn't taking anybody seriously at the time because I didn't really feel like anybody was gonna take me seriously. He showed the care enough, like, and asked the right questions, and like I was like, after I get off of work, like I have to talk to you about something, like I have to tell you something. It's not really what I want to do over the phone, but if I'm gonna go any further with you, I need to talk to you about this. And we sat on the phone for 4 hours, and one of the first things that like he said to me, you told me before anyone else could tell me, like all I can do is respect your truth or not respect it. He was so like unconditional and encouraging with it. He's actually one of the reasons like I decided to speak up about it, like because I asked him, like the one day I said, like, how would you feel if you were walking on the street and you know a stranger said to you, oh, you're with that girl who has HIV, like would that affect you? Would you feel a way about that? And he was like, no. Why are you asking? And I was like, because sometimes like I want to tell the world, but I think about you, I think about my mom, I think about like your like you think about those things. And he was like, you do what you want to do, it's your story. It was sweet. That just made me emotional, but it was so sweet. 5 years ago, like I would have had like a rich boyfriend, I would have been married, like a housewife, like you know, like the older you get, the more you realize like you need someone who's gonna wipe your ass when you get old, like, and take care of you and like just unconditionally love you, because like as humans, like we mess up, we make mistakes, and like things happen, and you need to know that someone's just gonna be there for you. I take Biktarvy. I didn't know people struggle to take their medication until like I shared it with the world. Like it's nothing but just I have to take this. You have to take it. Like that's it. That's always what it's been for me. As far as side effects, like I feel like it does do things to my body. It definitely affects me. Like maybe like GI issues. But that's really it. I don't feel any different. Like when I started to take my medication again, like after being like not knowing what was wrong and then taking my medication again, I felt like myself again. It was weird because it was like, wait, I'm not sick anymore. Like you took away all the sickness, but now I have all this like all these messed up, like crazy, like wicked, like emotional feelings. Like, but I felt normal. But like inside, like I was no longer like normal, but I felt normal. When you have a cold, a common cold, Or like I got the neurovirus last month, I remembered that I had HIV real quick. Personally, for myself, I would not do the injection. So I actually went to my infectious disease doctor this morning for my 3-month appointment. And I was talking to her about it because a lot of people are on the injections and ask me why I don't take the injections. And personally, I feel like for myself, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. The Biktarvy has been great for me, thank God, and I haven't had any problems. So I don't really see the need or the reason to do that. But I have learned that there is a lot of people who struggle with the hand to mouth and taking the medication. And I'm really, really grateful that there is an option for those people, because I would rather me be a little skeptical about an injection and these people be undetectable and healthy than people not taking their antiretrovirals. Living with HIV at the age of 22, I had to give up alcohol. I couldn't drink and fight an infection at the same time. It wasn't working. Like, my hangovers were lasting 2-3 weeks. It's just like I can't go to the club all weekend anymore. Like, I have to eat 3 meals a day. You're forced to just take care of yourself, really. The presidential election and everything that we're going through, I knew it was gonna happen, and in July, I actually had like a mental breakdown and opted to go on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications because I live in constant fear. I'm scared, not as much for myself because I do have insurance, but I am aware that that doesn't make me any less vulnerable than people around me, but that gives me a little bit more of like a peace of mind. But I do live in fear that, like, I don't know, maybe the zombies are gonna come and I'm gonna be without my medication. But I also fear for those who suffer from HIV and they don't have it as good as me. They don't have as many resources and they don't have the same support that I do. I fear for them because they should not have to fight to want to take their antiretrovirals. And the fact that someone has felt that they can attack the LGBTQ community and their healthcare, and they say people are so mad at me and they said, oh my gosh, how could you have HIV and how could you blame it on the LGBTQ community and drugs? The same way our president is now doing that and weaponizing it, and he's weaponizing something that it could be catastrophic for the world. For example, if you take away HIV funding and if you get rid of the Ryan White Foundation, many people will get HIV and many people will die. Like, this HIV doesn't have a face. It doesn't discriminate. This should not be about one population and attacking them. Nobody asked to do this. So when I was diagnosed with HIV, and at the time I hated it, I was so mad at them, but my infectious disease doctor, they made me go to therapy a week after I was diagnosed. And I've been grateful to be with the same therapist since I was diagnosed a 1.5 years ago. But I go to therapy, I go to the psychiatrist. Before I was diagnosed with HIV, I was always that person who, like, I didn't really cry and I wasn't really vulnerable. I didn't have much empathy and I didn't have much compassion. And honestly, I didn't care much about anything. And in a way, this has made me empathetic to the world and it's made me vulnerable. And I realized that being vulnerable isn't a bad thing. I love spending time with my friends and my family. I have a niece. She is my favorite thing in the world, and I have a dog. And honestly, like, I just like the simple things in life. Like, a happy day for me is like my friends, like Legos and like a pizza. You just have to be grateful. Like, I'm just grateful to be here. One goal that I have, like, have you ever heard of Bunny, XO Bunny? She has this podcast, it's called Dumb Blonde, and like she talks about like just really real stuff. She's this famous lady, but I would love to be on like one of her podcasts, for example. And then another goal, that's more like a superficial goal. I would love to create a nonprofit. And honestly, I want to work with children and little girls. Like I always say, like I'm only 22 and I've worked in healthcare for a while now, and I work a lot around a lot of old people. But children are very teachable, and I would love to just be involved in the community. And I really do believe that if we're ever going to put a halt on HIV, the kids need to be educated.
Thank you for listening to Confessions, HIV Positive Women. This season, we've explored the journeys of women aging with HIV, proving that health, resilience, and joy are possible at every stage of life. If these stories resonated with you, share them with someone who needs to hear them. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected for more conversations about HIV. Until next time, take small steps towards improving your health, one step at a time, one day at a time, and always find your joy.